This is a wild story. In 2002, there was a couple living in Brooklyn, and the couple, his name is Shimon. The guy, it's a fictitious name because I want to keep it private. He was married for almost 20 years. He's been trying to have kids. He did the IVF. He did a bunch of these medical procedures. He went to all the kibbutz tzaddikim. He went to get berachot from rabbis. He did the whole gamut. He pretty much went through the whole 9 yards of everything that he could possibly do, and he spent probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. And for over 20 years, he couldn't have any children. He had a good friend of his. His friend was a little bit older. He was about 65 years old. He was already grandpa. He's a very rich guy. He lived here in Flatbush, and he had him over for Shabbat. And on Friday night, Shimon's there with his wife and this Gevir, this wealthy guy. He's there also with his wife and his kids. And, they're talking, and, the guy notices that Shimon's a little bit upset. So he asks him, what's going on, Shimon? What is it? And so he tells his friend, he said, he's got to explain it. He's like, the stories. He said, just a couple of days before, they did a procedure. They tried to have kids, and they got the call like literally a few minutes before Shabbat that it came out negative, it wasn't good, it wasn't successful. And the guy's broken. The guy's a little over 40, 20 years of his life he's trying to have children, and he was having a lot of difficulty. So his friend, out of nowhere, I don't know why, his friend tells him, Shimon, listen, I know you for most of your life. Since you're a little kid, I know you. Why don't you just accept what Hashem is doing? Since I know you, you've been trying to challenge it, you've been trying to do your hishtadlut. Of course, you got to do hishtadlut. But, it's been 20 years. Why don't you just accept it? He says, what Rosh Shlomo Kluger brings down, that, you can adopt a boy and a girl, and you'll get the credit of having children. Now his wife's on the table. His wife looks at him and tells him, what are you saying, honey? Like, how do you tell him this? This is your friend. How did that just come out of your mouth? And she says, didn't you teach me that there's a Gemara that says, "Afilu cherev chadam munachat al tzavro shel adam al yite'esh min harachamim," which means that even if a person has a double-edged sword right at his neck, he shouldn't give up. Hashem is going to come save him. Yeshuat Hashem keheref ayin. He says, I don't get it. How are you telling your friend that? And she kind of put him on the spot, and she ticked him off even more. And so he gets even more upset, and he says, I know Shimon my whole life. He did everything. He calls me all the time. I heard it all. I'm just saying in a nice way, maybe he should accept it, and then maybe by accepting it, Hashem will help him. And he says furthermore, he goes, you know what? If this guy ends up having kids, I'll sell the whole business, the house, all my assets, and I'll go move to Israel and learn a kollel from morning till night. All right, whatever. It is what it is. The meal ends. His wife didn't talk to him the rest of the meal, and that was it. All right, a couple of weeks go by, about 5 weeks go by, and he gets a call. The call is from someone who's crying, they're weeping, they're sobbing. He can't even hear who it is, and after 20 seconds, he keeps saying, who is this? Who is it? Who is it? And, this was before, all the advent of the caller ID, all that good stuff. And he hears Shimon, and he's Shimon crying. He says, Shimon, why are you crying? He says, you don't believe it. He says, my wife's pregnant. She missed the ona. Or why? She's pregnant. The guy goes, oh, Mazal Tov, I'm so happy, B'Siman Tov, it's unbelievable. Wow, I can't believe it. It's been all these years. And suddenly it dawned on him that from his Mazal Tov, Tisha B'Av started to dawn on him, and the Echa started to fall on him, that this guy just literally told him, like a month ago, what he would do. He would go learn a kollel for, if he ended up having kids. So he thought nothing of it. He's like, what's the big deal? I'll make Katarat Nedarim. This was a Neder B'Ta'ut, Neder Havai. It wasn't even a Neder. It wasn't even a Neder. I didn't promise. Like I said it, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. It was, I know, Shabbat, but what's the, whatever. He goes to his rabbi here in Flatbush. And his rabbi hears the whole story, and his rabbi is spooked out. The rabbi was like, wow, that's a pretty great story. I'm not giving you hatarat nedarim on that. You got to go somewhere else. So suddenly his face became panim zo'afot. He gets super upset. He goes to Monsey. He goes to one of the Gedolim in Monsey, and he tells the Gadol in Monsey the whole case. And the Gadol in Monsey is even more impressed than the one in Brooklyn. He tells him, what? The guy, 20 years? Just get me Shimon on the phone. Gets Shimon on the phone. I can't believe it, Mazal Tov. Tells him, yeah, I'm not being matir this neder. Have a good day. So the guy started to get a little bit, nervous. He went to one of the Gedolim in Williamsburg, one of the Rebbes there, and he repeated the same thing the other two rabbis did. And then he went to a fourth rabbi in Lakewood, and he got the same response. At this point, this man, which was a wealthy individual, supported kolelim, yeshivot, he was a Talmid Hacham. He decided, you know what, I'm going to learn Hilchot Nedarim, and I'm going to figure it out myself. If no one's going to be matir the neder, I'm going to try to do it the right way. He learned all Hilchot Nedarim, and he flew out to Israel, and he went to Bnei Brak, to none other, to Shemaryahu, Yosef Chaim KANIEVESKY, none other than Reb Chaim. He went to the Gadol, the Sara Torah, and he tells Reb Chaim the whole story, and he tells him, okay, I would like you to please be matir this neder. And Shulchan Aruch says, one Hacham Gadol could be matir a neder. They don't even need three, by the way. It's a false, assumption. People think neder. So he tells Reb Chaim, please be matir the neder. Reb Chaim hears the whole thing, and Reb Chaim smiles at him and tells him, Midi mitri la matire. He tells him, no, I'm not being matir this neder at all. So the individual tells him, but the Shulchan Aruch says that you can. And he explains it. He tells him the halacha, and Reb Chaim knows the halacha. So Reb Chaim tells him, that's not why I'm not being matir the neder. He says, you want to know why? He says, because that lady, she was never supposed to have any children. She was absolutely supposed to go through life without any children for a gezerah that had nothing to do with anyone here. But when you committed to wanting to go and learn Torah full time, in the Shamayim, they said if this guy is willing to go and learn full time, we'll end up giving this lady a baby. She ended up having a healthy child, and I'm not being matir this neder. You got to come through. And the guy ended up going through with it, believe it or not. He ended up selling everything. He went to Israel, learning Kolel full day, ended up doing it. And unbelievable maskana from the Brit Kiruta Lasfatayim. And less than a month ago, we read the story of Purim, about Mordechai Yehudi, and the Gemara tells us in Megillat Zayin Amud Bet, Ki Mordechai Yehudi Mishne Lamelech Achashverosh Begadol VeLaYehudim Veratzu Lerov Echav. Unbelievably, but the Gemara tells us Lerov Echav. Lerov means that Mordechai was wanted, loved by most of his friends, velo lekol echav, but not all of his friends. Why? The Gemara tells us, melamed shepishu mimenu ksat Sanhedrin. And the Gemara tells us that part of the Sanhedrin left them. So let's get a couple of things clear. Mordechai was one of the 48 male prophets, and when this whole episode of Shushan with Haman, with Esther, Achashverosh, he took his position and he went to go work with the government and the political world in order to fix the situation. And he was incredibly successful. Besides the holiday, he saved all of Klal Yisrael. And, mind you, this is a holiday that never goes away. The Mamre Hazal tell us that at the end of time, all the holidays are going to be batel, and Purim is going to stay. So the question is, why did the Sanhedrin? Why is it only Rov Echav? What about Kol Echav? What happened to everybody else? Why did they suddenly walk away from him? So the pshat is that after he had saved all the Jews, he stayed on his post. They tell him, okay, yalla, come back. Okay, you finished the whole learning. Come back. You can come join us. He said, no, I just want to, I need to be here. I'll continue learning from here because I want to make sure that, this won't happen again. I don't want to have any one of Haman's children again. Amalek was still around. I don't have one of their children to still come around. I got to stay here. I want to hang out. And so, a couple of them, they took a step back from him. And the Khatam Sofer tells us something very interesting in Torah Moshe. It's a little small piece. He tells you, do you know why Mordechai was chosen in order to go save the Jews? You can't. If Khatam Sofer didn't say it, I don't know if he could repeat it. He says because his Torah wasn't Ratzui b'Shamayim. It wasn't, his Torah wasn't wanted in the Shamayim. So that what they did, because his Torah wasn't wanted, they gave him a very, very important and big mitzvah: go save the Jews. Go save everybody. It doesn't make any sense. What do you mean to tell me? And that's why the Gemara continues. A lot of times we're under the impression that mitzvot are very important. And mitzvot are. But the ikar is Talmud Torah keneged kolam. When it's in the Mishnah and Pe'ah Aleph Aleph that Talmud Torah is equal all of them, they were not being facetious. They were telling you the truth. That, by the way, learning Torah, it's equal to them all. And that's why the Gemara tells us later on, Amar Rav Yosef, Gadol Talmud Torah yoter mihatzalat nefashot. Don't kid yourself. Talmud Torah, teaching Torah, learning and teaching Torah is greater than saving lives. And later on, the Gemara continues, Gadol Talmud Torah yoter mibinyan bet hamikdash. It tells us further that Rav Shmuel Bar Marta tells us that learning Torah is greater than going and building the temple. Guys sitting and learning Torah, telling, okay, by the way, we got to go build the Bet HaMikdash. We got to go build the temple. I'm busy. I got to continue learning. It's unbelievable, and it continues. Gadol Talmud Torah yoter mikibud ava'im. It's even more important than honoring your mother and father, sitting learning Torah. That's why it says, Shekol otan shanim shaya Yaakov Avinu bebet Ever lo ne'enash. That all the time that he was there, the 14 years. He never had a midah keneged midah, tit for tat, that later ended up happening with Yosef. Yosef was away. He never had that problem because he did it for the focus of being able to learn and teach Torah. So Hashem said, no, when it comes to the Torah, there's absolutely no punishment. When if a person does mitzvot, those mitzvot have tremendous power, zichuyot. But if a person has averot, those averot wash away the mitzvot. Now, it's not one-to-one. It could be one mitzvah to 1,000 averot, or one averah to 1,000,000 mitzvot. It's all dependent on the action, kavanot, how you felt, the energies, the power, the lust. All these things have different things into the connection. But what's unbelievable is that the Talmud Torah supersedes it all. And this is probably why today most people will occupy themselves with everything other than the learning, when the learning is the ikar. And I think this is the most important part of the holiday of Pesach. We just finished Shirat Hayam, and the seventh day of Pesach, Shibisi Pesach, and everyone celebrates Kiryat Yam Suf, the splitting of the sea. So everyone's happy, splitting of the sea. We're singing Shirat Hayam, and I think the message is wrong. I think people are celebrating the wrong part of the event. People are under the impression that the splitting of the sea was why we're celebrating, and that's not the reason. I hate to say it. It's not the first time the splitting of the sea. It wasn't the second either. It wasn't the third. It wasn't the fourth, and it wasn't the fifth. We've had at least 5 events of splitting the sea between the Tanakh and between the Gemara. At least 5. There's a famous one in the Gemara where one of the Tanaim needed to cross the river. He split the river. He walked right over, and then he let the river flow back. Then there was an Arab behind him. The Arab said, "Hey, Rabbi, I need some help." He said, "Okay, my Arab friend, no problem." He split it for him, and the Arab also went through. And don't kid yourself, there was even bigger miracle when it came to Yehoshua bin Nun. When Yehoshua bin Nun crossed after 40 years into Eretz Canaan, the Jordan River not only flowed backwards, the waters went all the way up as a wall, miles and miles, until the top of the heavens. And furthermore, you might not be under the impression that Kiryat Yam Suf was the splitting of the sea one time, but that's not true also. It's 2 times. That's why the Torah doesn't call it Kiryat Yam Suf. Look throughout the entire Torah, those words are not found. It's called Bekiat Yam Suf. So why do we even call it Kiryat Yam Suf? Because there were two individuals, Datan and Aviram. They stayed behind. They were part of the 80% who said, we're not leaving Egypt with you, Moshe. You can go on your own. Later on, they changed their mind. They ended up walking. They got to the Yam Suf, and the Yam Suf was closed. So they told the Yam Suf, open. And the Yam Suf opened for them too. Those two people, Datan and Abiram. And so what exactly are we celebrating? Because if the oceans and the waters were split multiple times for multiple people over multiple generations and many different timelines, then what is it we're celebrating? We're celebrating that in 49 days we got the Torah. So when we are celebrating Kiryat Yam Suf, we are celebrating not just the splitting of the sea, but that the splitting of the sea here meant that we got a Sefer, we got the Sefer Torah, we got the book, and by getting the book, that was the goal. That was why we are coming to celebrate. There's a famous midrash in Echa, which says, it's a hard midrash to even teach, which says, God says to the people, Halvai oti azevu v'torati shamaru. It would have been better that you guys left me, God says, whatever that means even. It would have been better you left me, and at least you kept my Torah. Why did you abandon the Torah? I gave you all the knowledge, the wisdom, the secrets. I gave you the elements of the creation of the universe, of how to connect to everything, to the oneness of the Boreh. He says, you want to leave me? No problem, but why'd you leave my Torah? And I think if we take this a little bit more seriously, our learning will become a little bit more focused and more enjoyable. We have a special gift, and that gift has to be cherished. And that's why the biggest avon is the avon of Bitul Torah. It's the avon of not learning Torah. Because Hashem says, I gave you to you all. I did all these miracles for one purpose only. Not because just because you're special, but because I'm going to give you this Torah and I want you to follow it. I want you to follow what it says here. And by doing it, your life will be better. Don't worry about God. God is perfect in and of itself. This was all for us. And I think if we take this seriously and we take this Gemara and Megillat Zayin seriously, we'll start to learn and teach and elevate ourselves through the Torah. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen. Amen.